Welcome to Open Source Health, the podcast that doesn't just talk about fixing healthcare, we're actively doing it. I'm Tripp Johnson, CEO of the Advita Collective, and I'm here to take you on a behind-the-scenes journey as we build a technology-forward, stakeholder-centric healthcare company. Our mission? Bring transparency and innovation to an industry that desperately needs both. Join us as we dive into the intersections of policy, technology, and hands-on healthcare, offering a rare glimpse into the challenges and triumphs of creating a system that works for everyone: patients, providers, policymakers, payers, and technologists alike. We'll share our journey of building in the open. We'll have candid conversations with our team and other like-minded change makers who are as passionate as we are about revolutionizing healthcare. This is Open Source Health, where we don't just diagnose the problems, we roll up our sleeves and work on the solutions. Let's get started.
All right. Time for some questions and stuff, huh? We'll chat our conversation.
Yeah, deep reflections on the state of insurance-driven healthcare.
Yeah, fighting the good fight. So we had an interesting experience, right? This past week. Took a few shots at Blue Cross Blue Shield. For anybody that's not aware, we had a podcast episode with some of the issues we've been having with Blue Cross Blue Shield recently. Tripp, do you mind taking like a 2-minute recap of that, just catch anybody up on it?
Yeah, so over the last couple of years, we've had a few main issues. The main one, just not receiving timely payment for the services that we've rendered. It's been inconsistent, and we haven't received good answers in terms of why are we not paying certain claims, and we've received a real administrative runaround on that. That's been the primary focus of our current issues. Other folks are having a lot of problems with prior authorizations and changes to internal processes that are having a real impact on people's ability to get timely payment. And with Blue Cross, making up 60+% of the commercial market in North Carolina, these issues are of macro importance. They're important to anyone who has Blue Cross Blue Shield healthcare. I think also in terms of my general mission and belief that we should be making high quality healthcare more affordable and more accessible, one of the key components of that is encouraging folks to go in network for their services in behavioral health. And sometimes it makes me feel like I've got egg on my face when I'm saying go in network. It's a more sustainable business model and it's better for everyone. And then when you just don't get paid when you're owed hundreds of thousands of dollars, it's tough to keep that narrative going for too long.
I think something that's I'm curious about is I think I often make this fallacy of assuming that these large systems work in a way that's never entirely human, like they've ironed all the human qualities out of this. And admittedly, when I saw your most recent post on LinkedIn and saw you square up and take a shot at Blue Cross and tag them, as someone whose livelihood is dependent on you being the captain of the ship, there was a little bit of anxiety around that, wondering what sort of human elements could potentially be at play. And I'm curious if you fear any sort of reprisal, right? Do you fear that Blue Cross zones in, you took a punch, swing at them, and do you worry that potentially this affects reimbursement and what's happening right now?
Yeah, I did. And I'm generally concerned. Again, Blue Cross, 60% of our payments come from Blue Cross. Getting in a public quarrel with them is not something that I am interested in doing. Quite frankly, I think if we go back a few years and even earlier this year, I'm a huge general supporter of Blue Cross. I've had a long-standing relationship with them. Some of the people I look up to the most were seasoned executives, C-suiters there, and have played a pivotal role in my growth and development as a leader. I have a really generally positive outlook on insurance for someone who is on the other side of it, leading a provider organization. I don't like to make insurance the bad guy. We've all got a job to do. I'm generally very amenable to trying to work together. I offered a couple months ago, someone who got let go of Blue Cross asked me if I would come in and talk to their executive team about behavioral health and where maybe where they could save money, lower reimbursement rates, and other places where maybe we can align the cost savings from Blue Cross and patient care by reimbursing some other codes a little bit higher. So I don't view it as a zero sum game. And it is very disappointing to have the current roadblocks with it. I am worried. Quite frankly, I'm worried that some of the challenges we're having right now with payments from Blue Cross are a direct reflection of my obstinate attitude towards them.
Yeah, you took a swing at a giant.
Yeah. I mean, what, $12-13 billion revenue company, a solid 150 times bigger than us.
So why? What does that mean? Like, what's your thinking on that? Why take a swing?
Yeah, I mean, part of it's just like, I don't know what else to do.
Yeah.
My job, I think from one perspective, is I look at the whole organization and I try and navigate the future and build for the future, but also look at what needs attention right now. And what needs attention right now is we need to get paid for a lot of the stuff that we've done. And a big component of that is more recent issues that we've encountered with Blue Cross. It took us over 18 months to resolve a similar issue last time. And so we caught this one after 2 or 3 weeks. It's now been about 6 weeks. And we reach out to our representatives there, and we just get the runaround. We get this crazy administrative runaround. And then I go back and I'm like, okay, the example, let me make it a little more tangible, is we've had 2 specific issues with claims so far. One of them is they say people aren't in network. And then we provide them with the letter they sent us saying that our providers are in network. And then they say, oh, well, this must be a system error. And we're, okay, so when's it going to get fixed? And then it's, again, these are 1 to 2 week delays a lot of times in responses. So there's that issue. And then we came up with this new issue where we provide PHP and IOP, pretty standard, that those services are kind of one and the same population. And they came back and said, in our system now, these need separate taxonomies. If you're billing from the same organization, you need separate taxonomies in order to bill this. And then I go and I talk to other folks who own programs in the state, and I'm like, hey, this is what's going on. Are you all having trouble with this? Just be aware that it could become an issue. And people are saying, oh, we haven't run across that. And that we haven't run across that makes me feel like, are we getting singled out? Is this directed at us? But at the same time, we're not struggling with some of the issues that they are. So to me, the total lack, say that?
So what are they struggling with?
One thing I've heard from a number of provider organizations is the prior authorization piece taking weeks. We touched on it, I think, a week or so ago. Yeah. But, certain services require a prior authorization. This makes a ton of sense to me. I'm not against prior authorizations. I don't want people taking resources that are not medically necessary and have an evidence base for treating them, right? We don't want people getting speculative surgeries, but you should work through your primary care and get a referral to a specialist a lot of times. I'm not against that. But for us in doing outpatient behavioral health, it's like if someone calls and they say they're struggling and they really want to get help, then our window of opportunity to get them into services and engage them is pretty narrow. And so for these services and being an outpatient provider, you expect pretty quick turnaround on that. And when you don't get it, a lot of times then they don't receive the care they need. Who knows? That could end up in a more acute hospitalization, a more serious and more expensive overall bill for the insurance company. We have not had those issues, but I have heard a lot of providers kind of similarly situated are struggling with that.
Yeah. And if you'll put your tinfoil hat back on for a second, because you didn't the last time we talked about this, what's your Alex Jones impersonation interpretation of this?
In terms of like, why are they doing that? Like, why is this happening?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's very likely a mandate or a strong encouragement from the highest levels at Blue Cross to slow down payments going out the door. They lost the state health plan. So in January, Aetna will take over the North Carolina state health plan, which I think has 600 plus 100,000 members on it, meaning that's a lot less revenue for Blue Cross. In response to that, they have to figure out how to balance the budget and make their numbers work. I think they are very likely just trying to slow down, again, the payments going out the door. So anything they can do to delay their payables, they're coming up with reasons to do that. And it's going to work. Like we've run out of, I've run out of money before, and then I just all right, we're just going to hold off a little bit. The accountant doesn't need to get paid this month. The attorney's not going to get paid this month, but I call them. I say, hey, this is what's going on. Can you just give me a little bit of time? You manage the relationship. We've never done that to our team. We're never like, hey, let me give you an IOU for your paycheck. Quite frankly, I don't know. I don't know if there's a big strategy at Blue Cross and they're actually going through some massive transition and there's something that would make all of this make sense. Right now, it looks like really short-sighted behavior that is really going to have a detrimental impact on their network. Number one, I think long-term, Blue Cross could be setting themselves up for real failure in the sense that they have been the best insurance company to work with historically in North Carolina, as evidenced by having a great network, generally speaking, across the state. And when we're talking about behavioral health, if you're going to take any insurance as a therapist, as a psychiatrist, it's going to be Blue Cross. That's going to be the first one you accept. One, they've historically paid the best rates. Two, they've been pretty easy to work with. Three, the majority of North Carolinians have Blue Cross plans, so it's a slam dunk to go in their network overall. But if you keep running into these issues in terms of payments or authorizations, people are going to start saying, hey, it's not worth it to be in network. Right. And then that just drives the demand up for if a lot of people drop out of the network, now you have a lot of people who don't have access to resources. It becomes more of the standard being out of network. Now, all of a sudden, people are used to paying even higher prices for healthcare. And then, long term for Blue Cross, they have a smaller network. It keeps dwindling. As an employer, I've thought about switching our entire HR platform because we don't offer Blue Cross benefits. I was going to change what we used for HR so that our team could have Blue Cross benefits. But now I'm like, absolutely not. I don't want anything to do with that. So I think there's potentially a lack of strategic thinking going on, or there's something that we're just not aware of, which is certainly possible. I'm just going to say, I think it's unlikely given the amount of executives, former medical directors that I know from Blue Cross and what they have told me in confidence. We're not going to name any names, but there's been a massive exodus from Blue Cross, especially the last 6 months. But if you look back over the last few years, there's been a real lack of tenure and stability at certain levels throughout the organization. It seems like every day you talk to someone else, there's a new restructuring. It's just become incredibly burdensome to deal with. And now, again, we have hundreds of thousands of dollars that we're waiting to collect.
Yeah, I think the tension between this is interesting and adjust my framing of this. But for me as an employee, right, my pathway into into this whole endeavor with you was always that I became very, very skeptical about the value return of private pay healthcare, right? But for anybody that doesn't know what that is, or you're just passing by and listening, essentially there's this idea that I can pay more money, get better treatment by paying cash. And when I look at things like mental health issues or substance use issues or things like that have some degree of chronicity to them, I don't necessarily see the return on that dollar. So that's one issue. The other issue that I was sort of troubled by was I don't know anybody that can afford to access this stuff anyway. I certainly couldn't. So if we don't have people that can access it, are we doing society any good by having this stuff? You've opted out of playing a game that has scalable social value. It's like, that's just not interesting for me to be a part of, and it doesn't align with my values and ethics and morals. So the big value proposition in coming and being a part of this was always that, hey, we are going to partner along with insurance. We're going to work with them. We want to give data where data is needed. We want to figure out how to lower the overall cost of treatment. What are the best interventions? All this sort of stuff. I think for me, one of the things that's frustrating about this and could fuel some degree of cynicism or sort of nihilistic resolution or dipping out of that endeavor is that, hey, they're not doing their part of the game, right? Like, I get it. We're both businesses, right? We're a business. We need to make money, like to be able to have food and cook fancy stuff as you like to be able to cook fancy stuff. We're both on a big spice kick, exotic spice kicks right now. So we like to have our exotic spice kick money, right? So we're a business. We like that. But so are they. But all of this stuff is mutually dependent on each other, sort of honoring that agreement. And right now we have this very one-sided proposition, right? Our whole mission and value for me, and why like I joined the team, was we wanted to improve healthcare, but we need people to not take their ball and go home, right?
Yeah. And so, kind of shifting from some of the problems we faced into how I'm trying to navigate it is to your point, like healthcare is just a big thing. I always said if I thought we were batting 1,000 in the private pay space, we would be able to prove that what we were doing worked, and we needed more investment in that.
Yeah.
It's not a real hypothesis. Like, I don't believe that. So what it came to was like there are these services that add a lot of value. People get well, and we can provide them. It's a lower margin game, but that's quite all right. And we want to have these more systemic impacts. In order to do that, you got to fight within the system. So we're full bore within the system. Now the system just seems to be like, now we're one of these other groups that's just angry at insurance. I don't love it, but I'm not one to back down just, I guess, from a fight or an argument. I view it in some ways as it's part of my mission. I've been like this since I was little. I feel some sort of pressure to stand up for myself and for others, even when it may not be in our immediate best interest. In this case, what that really means is I've been pretty active with kind of statewide politics and some of my local representatives because I'm really interested in how we can use legislation and policy to improve health throughout North Carolina. Now that I'm having these issues with Blue Cross, I've got to then engage the elected officials. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't have a plan. I'm not going to them and saying, hey, I want some sort of legislation introduced. But what I am doing is saying, hey, guys, there are some consumer protection issues going on here in terms of how our patients of Blue Cross actually protected in terms of their benefits, how are providers protected against a monopolistic power? Because at the end of the day, Blue Cross basically has a monopoly on commercial insurance in North Carolina. And if they are treating us poorly, we need government intervention. That's what we're going after. And I don't expect this to be a short fight or to have any major wins. But my hope is that sunlight's like the greatest antiseptic or something. If we put some attention on this, maybe it will get fixed. I don't know. I'm not in circles where anyone else is actively doing this. Everyone is just complaining about the problems. You know, my wife is a speech pathologist, is in some Facebook group, and, you know, Blue Cross said they were changing this entire prior authorization process. Everyone had to do a bunch of work. And then they just said, oh, never mind, we're not doing that yet. They kind of did the same thing with us for behavioral health. They put in more regulations around us being able to provide certain services than were dictated by the Joint Commission or by the Department of Health and Human Services, which sometimes I agree with those, but you can't change the rules and not give a heads up. And that's specifically the issue I feel like we're facing right now. And if we're facing it, and I'm a pretty well-connected person, then I bet a lot of other people are facing it, and they are spending this immense amount of time trying to solve issues to no end. And guess what? That, again, this is where it is a zero-sum game in some level, is if you're a small practice and you're not getting paid, now all of a sudden, instead of taking care of patients, you got to fight with insurance. I'm spending tens of hours a week now arguing with insurance companies or you know, just trying to get paid. And if I can't do it, then I have to bring in other people. So now we've engaged with a few elected officials and plan to at least get some sunlight on the issue. If our issues are not resolved sufficiently, I think we have a couple of claims with the Department of Insurance we're planning to make. One of these is also around parity. So here's another just crazy one. We are in network with 8 or 10 commercial insurances, pretty much everywhere. All of them except Blue Cross allow us to provide ambulatory detoxification. which is a win for patients, much cheaper than inpatient detox. It could save the insurance company money. And it's something we're really passionate about providing.
Yeah. Community-based care.
Community-based care. And again, let me back up and say Blue Cross has said that a lot of what they're doing is to help in-network providers, make sure that people are using in-network providers and making sure they're not going out of state. Yet the actions they're taking are having the exact opposite impact. They're making it harder to be an in-network provider, which is going to drive people to going out of network. They're making it harder to provide care in North Carolina, which is naturally going to make people go outside the state to get care. I cannot understand this disconnect. So that's a lot of kind of what's going on. And if we can't affect this, I don't know who can, but it's not right in terms of our mission being around high quality healthcare. We have to be cognizant of the structures we are playing within, being capitalism and our kind of political institutions. If we can't solve it at the healthcare level, then we need to engage at some other level. And also, quite frankly, in the awareness. And that's why I want to record podcasts. That's why I'm posting on LinkedIn and Facebook. It's not because I think Blue Cross is evil, but I think their policies are detrimental. And I'm not alone. I am definitely not powerful enough to have some sort of impact. So we got to build a coalition that really puts their money where their mouth is.
Yeah. And I think that's what this platform can be for right now. It's like, how do we build that coalition? I think it's what we would love from people is to reach out, partner up, come on the podcast, talk, chat. What are their struggles? And how do we get Blue Cross to play fairly? Meaning we both have some sort of contract to society here in North Carolina. Our job is to try to provide access to care by making sure that it's accessible, making sure we have the resources that are available to the community. Then it's Blue Cross's job to make sure that they're paying for that. If they're not honoring their side of the agreement, what sort of recourses do we have? How do we bring them to the table to do what they're supposed to do and honor their end of that contract? Because that's how this thing works. I've been a huge advocate for a lot of the people I know in the private pay space to fucking go in network, to figure that out. It's scary, right? Obviously, look what we're talking about right now. It's terrifying. But I'm just not interested. It's still not interesting if you can say that like we offer better healthcare, we offer better results, we offer all this stuff. But it's like, listen, man, I don't care what you offer. If people can't afford to access it, then it's just sort of it's a vanity game. Like, who cares? And it has no social value ultimately, right? Like it's so niche, so specific. If I don't know someone that can afford to access your level of care and your program, then it's just not that interesting, right? And doesn't have scalable value. But in these sort of situations, it's like, yeah, all right, I get why you don't want to go in network. I get why you don't want to deal with the hassle of that. I think one of the things I dig about this is like, cool, we still get to fight the good fight, right? Punk rock, baby. Like, I don't think it's Woody Guthrie, but I forgot what the quote is. It's the country music is 3 chords and speaking power to truth, or speaking truth to power, right?
Yeah, trying to. So we'll see where it goes. I mean, I don't necessarily, my guess is we'll have some trickle in of insurance payments and they'll say we got the system fixed and we'll continue to fight another day. And
yeah.
But we'll see. I mean, hopefully there's more to it than that, and hopefully like I just don't understand why it is so contentious. Like you said, you expect big companies to be very well automated, you run into actual issues, you address those issues, and you keep moving. I think I've got 27 pages just documenting our correspondence, like one bullet point at a time over the last 2.5 years of what we've dealt with. So yeah, I'm going to go maybe make a little more coffee and get back to it.
Awesome. We'll wrap.